It really is a very exciting show for me. So this is our guest, Chante Lux, who is a modern day medicine woman. And for those of you who don't know what a medicine woman entails, I mean, it's not a nurse, it's not a doctor, it's something that encompasses so much more than that and goes back like thousands of years. So I'll let you explain what a medicine woman is and how you define yourself.
Yeah, that's a really great question. So medicine woman to me is really just talking about the types of plants and herbs that I work with, as well as other healing modalities, with the intention of supporting healing in people and with families and with our environment. And there are many, many lost traditions that are we've lost. We've lost access to them. And especially in the West, where we don't have much context for medicine outside of the allopathic, medical world, even as we're seeing a resurgence in integrative medicine and naturopaths, and holistic forms. There are people such as myself who are really feeling called to learn more and to share more about some of these practices and traditions, and support people who simply aren't getting what they need from the status quo of the medical world. So we can talk a little more specifically about the types of medicines that I work with.
We're definitely going to get into that. We have so much to go over today, because as you're talking to me and as you came early today, you're really a woman of many talents. I mean, you're very, very diverse.
Thank you. And
you come from a very different background from what you've come to know and what you want to spread right now. And there's so much to cover. Well, why don't you just tell people first, maybe where they can find you, how they can find your website, and then if you don't mind, why don't you talk about how you became who you are and where you came from?
Sure. So I want to just offer up my contact information. You can contact me at Loves the Journey, LOVES THEJOURNEY @gmail.com. And I'm also just going to give my phone number, because it's really important for me to make myself available to anybody, and particularly women who may feel called to some of the things that we're going to discuss today and need a safe place and a trusted, confidential person to just ask questions.
That's very generous.
Yeah, well, and I'm completely comfortable with that. So my telephone number, my personal number is 714-654-6299. And I really, really want to make it the point that anybody who feels any kind of resonance with myself, with what I'm talking about, and if there's any part of you that's just curious and needs to know more, wants to know more, trust yourself, trust whatever that part of you is, and reach out, because it's really such an honor for me to step into my sacred contract and support people who are seeking healing. And just more information, whether it has anything to do with me or not, I just want to support people getting access to that. So, website is still under development. You know how that goes.
Yeah, but it's good, because I think that all the stuff that we're going to cover, I think it's probably going to tweak a lot of interest. So absolutely. It's good that they have that. And we can also mention it at the end.
Sure,
too,
absolutely.
For people that might be tuning in later. Yeah. So, okay, we have a lot to cover. We have tea. We're going to do a ceremony for you today. Chante's going to explain. She's got a lot of things. She just got back from India. She's going to talk to us about that. I was really intrigued by her because she's coming from a corporate background, which is complete opposite. Did I do that right?
Yeah,
the complete opposite world of where she is now. And we're also going to tie in some other things. There's a lot of modalities that she works with, a lot of medicinal herbs that hopefully you can touch on. She also does circles. I'd love to hear how that goes.
Absolutely.
And if you don't mind, I'd like to actually bring in a modern day medicine, cannabis, and just from experiences that I've heard and how people sometimes get paranoid, I'd like to maybe dispel some of the other things like ayahuasca. And maybe since you have the knowledge, maybe we can compare and take a look at all those things.
Definitely. So just to back up a little bit, I wanted to, I was very blessed to have opportunities to travel very young in life. I was a foreign exchange student. I lived in London for a year, that brought me to live in Scotland for 7 years, where I went to university and studied and majored in business. And so, but I think there's something to be said for having the opportunity to travel, get outside of the bubble that is the US, that is Orange County, where I grew up, and start to experience and see the way that different people live. And it sort of really opened up my eyes to a bigger world, and started to deconstruct the idea that there's a right way and a wrong way. And I think that's one thing I'm really passionate about, is supporting people getting the opportunity to travel. And get outside of the box, as you say on your show. Yeah. You know, and experience.
That is my tagline.
And it's a great tagline because unfortunately there's not a lot of, you know, the status quo in America and in the West in general is, you know, business as usual. This is what we're supposed to do. This is how we're supposed to dress.
And you know that coming from the corporate world.
Absolutely. So for when I graduated university and came back to the States, I very quickly fell in love with autism and had a niche working with autistic children and pulling language from them. So that was my background, was working with children and families. And it was a beautiful journey. And it was also incredibly frustrating working with government contracts, dealing with the constraints of working with insurance companies, and realizing that my hands were tied, and that because of these boundaries, I wasn't able to make the difference that I knew I could make. And so after I sat in my first ayahuasca ceremony, it became very clear to me that I was complete with that part of my journey. And
how did that find you?
It's interesting because
your first ayahuasca ceremony.
A lot of people. I was planning on going to Peru, and I knew that it was something I was interested in. I've been a seeker my whole life, but a very conscientious and careful seeker. You know, I wasn't like, hey, let's try everything and see. No. And I think, you know, there's a smart way, there's a conscious way and a careless way to do everything, right? Food, sex, you know, experimentation with altered states of consciousness, you know, going on a vacation, right? I mean, dating, you know, there's ways to do things where you're really minimizing the risks. And then there's just, you know, throwing yourself in and hoping for the best. And I've always been, you know, fairly intelligent, I think, and conscientious about how I move forward. So I was planning on taking a trip to Peru. And it so happened that, and a lot of people say this, ayahuasca found me. And I was very quickly blessed with an opportunity once I really felt called to work in that tradition with some incredible teachers and a lot of opportunities to dive right into that.
No, I get the feeling, I could almost hear them. I get the feeling that a lot of people watching are like, ayahuasca, what's ayahuasca? So maybe we should take a second before you get into that.
Yeah, ayahuasca is a very sacred tradition that is thousands of years old and is known by a few different names. Yahe is another one. And in South America, in Colombia, Peru, Ecuador, Brazil, there are many different traditions which use this plant medicine. And it's fascinating. It's fascinating medicine because out of 25,000 species in the Amazon jungle, somehow putting two of them together creates this brew of which the active ingredient is DMT, which is in pretty much all living things. We get a big dose of it when we're born, when we die, and when we dream. And
does that stand for something, DMT, or is it just DMT? It does.
Dimethyltryptamine. You're putting me on the spot here. I can never remember but DMT is the active ingredient.
Right. Okay.
It does stand for something, and unfortunately, I'm not the
No, but there's this component
which is in us, and
that is very long,
and all
so
living things, right? And it was used in its. You can find a lot of information by pioneers like Terence McKenna, who was a big advocate of using DMT. Well, I did try DMT, but I felt really called to the more traditional way of taking it, which is ayahuasca, which the MAO inhibitor, which is the vine ayahuasca, extends the quick metabolization of this DMT when it's smoked or injected, which they've done some studies. And people have been experimenting with this for a long time. Basically lifts the veils of reality as we know it. And can be really terrifying. It can also be incredibly beautiful, blissful, empowering, or kind of remembering. But I was called to the more traditional way of experiencing this medicine, and so and that's ayahuasca. And so ayahuasca is ceremonial. It's facilitated by a shaman who has a special relationship with the medicine and is able to facilitate a very powerful healing experience for those who are sitting
or open
in ceremony. Well, and those who, and again, you know, when we talk about these medicines, I don't have any sort of idea or notion that everybody needs to do anything. Mm-hmm. I think people who are called feel called and will seek it, or it will find them, whether that's marijuana or psilocybin or or whatever, or cacao, you know, which is, you know, completely non-psychedelic, mm-hmm. or you know what. So I think there are medicines that work well with different people, and part of the journey, if you're open and you're seeking insight and self-discovery and clarity and healing, you begin to resonate towards, and your higher self will call you to those that you are meant to work with, that mm-hmm. are going to work well with you. Mm-hmm. So it found me long before I ever had to go to Peru. Mm-hmm. And so it's very controversial. It's in the U.S. because it's still illegal unless it's under a branch of the ONAC or the Santo Daime Church, or a limited number of organizations that are able to legally use ayahuasca as a sacrament. And truly, it is a spiritual experience. You know, it's not like you know, taking a tab of acid and tripping out. It is a profound spiritual experience that tends to bring up everything that we're not dealing with in our conscious walking lives. And it also has the power to address and clear and a lot of pockets of trauma and somatic pockets of fear that we are somehow holding on to. No matter how much yoga we do or therapy we engage in, there are these things, right, that we just can't seem to quite access and clear. And ayahuasca is very good for getting those things moving and clearing. So,
well, it sounds purely psychological, like, whereas when you hear about psychedelics, sometimes you're seeing something that's a reality and sometimes you're not.
Yeah.
But with this, it sounds like it's almost going into those grooves in the brain. I mean,
it's fascinating. The research on it is fascinating. The tests that show the liver tests that come out on the other side of someone sitting in ayahuasca ceremony are profound. Your DMT scores are up. But really what people report, and from what I've experienced, there's a real, you know, how it works is the shaman is using songs called icaros, which actually activate the medicine. And that's a really profound concept that I didn't quite understand before working with it. But the songs are addressing aspects of you and your healing, your lineage, your maybe past lives. And so it's a very internal, personal process that even as you're guided on a journey, you're on a solo journey, even as you're on a group journey. But the insights and the downloads are very personal, and they're very transformative. And
so when you talk about these songs, are you, as the medicine woman or the facilitator of these groups, are you singing these songs, or where are the songs coming from?
Yeah, the songs. So whoever the facilitator mm-hmm. is working with dieting with plants, who teach them songs, mm-hmm. learning songs, channeling songs, mm-hmm. And that work with the medicine and some of the medicines that are within the brew, the medicine. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of, it's outside of our like general context to think that each plant has its own frequency,
right? But I think science has talked about that anyway, that there's vibrational
and that's one of the things that many people report, you know, as a part of sitting in ayahuasca ceremony, is it's almost like it's nothing new. You just like remember, you forgot your interconnectedness with all things. You forgot, mm-hmm. but people experience deep personal messages from plants and have this refreshed take on life and mm-hmm. remember who they are mm-hmm. before they were conditioned with their programming of their family and their identity and their career
Right,
and their
right.
roles as a mom
And society.
all of that. So it's been a beautiful journey to watch so many people in their awakening and really just lift the lid off of their freedom and peace and fulfillment. So a lot of mothers, I'm really called to support a lot of mothers, especially of special needs children, where there's just it's a very isolating place to be in. And so I feel especially called to bridge this medicine to women who may be dealing with a lot of trauma that just hasn't gotten handled, is still constraining them in some way. So,
well, you have your background also with kids with autism.
Sure.
So what were you doing in India?
This last trip to India, I was working on a couple different projects. I've been working with an organization that basically takes in special needs children from Indian orphanages, of which they're pretty much discarded and thrown away.
Right.
And
we all know that from the movie Lion, if anybody's seen that movie.
Yeah. Actually haven't seen it. I can't see it.
It's hard to watch.
Yeah.
I mean, I started Googling orphanages in India and saying, how can I help? How can I adopt? Because it's so heart-wrenching.
Yeah.
You know,
and the Indian government just kind of lifted the lid on adoptions for India. So it's a tense time. They're not able to show, the children's faces for their own, best well-intended reasons. But I also have some projects in the north of India, some village schools, some city schools, and really that's just such a passion for me to be able to bring engagement. My biggest, I guess notion is that, human beings thrive on connection, and we live in a very isolated time with all of our connection through the internet and through Facebook. We're really disconnected in some of the most fundamental core ways. So, and a lot of these kids in India, their families are in survival mode. They're doing the best they can to get enough food, for the family. So these kids are left really to their own devices, and there isn't enrichment. There isn't positive role models.
Right.
They learn to beg because it's reinforced by all the money they get from it. So how do we empower these kids? How do we teach them meditation and yoga?
Is that
and
something
hygiene?
that you do when you
I work with
there?
I've got great partners in India who are great channels for the support, the resources, and the groups that I bring to have an adventure and also have a degree of service that they can gift and bless India with. I'm all about the energy exchange. So,
Well, I think it's wonderful that you're taking that to a place like India. I mean, I think of India as a very mystical place, but they have these tiers of society where it's almost kind of, it's like the mysticism is discarded, I guess.
Yeah.
Because how could you have such a mystical place that's so magical and colorful? From what I hear, I haven't been there.
Yeah.
But
you should come this summer.
I don't know. Maybe I'll think about it. I mean, if I could make a difference, and if I could help, I might want to take a couple of kids with me. I don't know if I could leave anybody there.
Oh, I got you.
So, but it's amazing when you think about how the history of India, but yet they have this way of kind of throwing people away, which doesn't
it's really hard to, having spent, a great deal of time there over the past 2 years. I've been there 5 times in the last 2 years.
Wow. That's a lot in a 24-month period.
Yeah. I've been really blessed, and I have a lot of supporters that see the work that I do and want to support me making a difference with these kids and with these, underserved populations. But I think it's really easy to try to assess India from our filters, and it's not until you really go to India that you have some perspective. There's a great,
that's interesting.
Yeah, because what you can't see on the outside is the systems that are in place there that have been working for them for 8,000. I'm not trying to say that they're,
no, right, of course.
Obviously they're dealing with different, plumbing and different things like that. There's 1.25 billion people there, and if you look at a map of the size of India and all of the different countries' populations that fit within these different states, you start to get present to the enormous challenges.
Well, they have like how many? They have like a zillion different languages in India.
There's
I
like
mean,
something like over 50 languages, but so many dialects. I
yeah.
mean, even just the different areas that I travel to, it's like I could know Hindi but still not be able to communicate in Telugu or Malayalam.
Wow.
So it's like so English is the beautiful blessing if you know, if you want to say that the British left a blessing after draining them of most of their resources.
And sign language.
Yeah.
Like there's a universal sign. I think every kid should learn sign language because you can literally go to Sweden and speak to people.
Well, and I'll tell you what, you know, people always ask me, you know, I stay in villages and I love to take people, teachers, yoga teachers, music teachers, people that just feel called to connect and and get a little closer to what is this place, you know, that, you know, the most powerful language that I've ever learned is the language of no words. And you can communicate so much without saying anything and there's a beautiful part of India that is like true namaste, you know, not just something we say in yoga class where it's like love, namaste, you know, but like really you see them looking right into you and you feel really seen and witnessed. And there's an intimacy in that is sort of an interesting dichotomy because you're within a culture where, you know, it's still very, very reserved and there's a lot of rules about how you interact with male and women. So yeah, but I got to bring a lot of cacao and cacao ceremony to India this time, and that was really special.
I want to talk about what you were doing in my kitchen, my humble little kitchen. So Chante Lux comes into my small little adobe here, and she says, "I need a pot. I need some water. Can you get that going for me?" And all of a sudden, she opens up a bag full of, I don't know, like 5 or 6 or 7 different, you know, parchment papers and little boxes, or actually like they're little glass containers of
spices.
And then all of a sudden you put all these little cacao bits, but they look like coins.
I brought 2 pieces.
Coins.
I brought 2 pieces of 2 different types of cacao. La Chocolatier, amazing. My amazing sister, goddess Cynthia, she started this amazing company, really high quality cacao. So I brought over some Peruvian cacao and some Guatemalan cacao. We blended that up. We're just using a little Palo Santo to just sage our little. So
she really makes this a total sensory experience, is what I guess I was trying to say. I mean, she took over my kitchen. She started stirring this pot. Everything was done with such intention. That's what really struck me. It wasn't that I didn't know what things were. I really didn't. But it was the way that she moved and the way that she had intention behind everything that she added and everything that you kind of amalgamated together. It was like watching a modern day concoction
it's like my little cauldron, you know. Like I definitely have some witch in me, I can't deny it, you know, definitely. But basically, you know, a big part of what I do, you know, obviously you know, ayahuasca is not legal in this country. So
is that because the FDA hasn't tested it?
I would say that it's because largely there's a huge war on consciousness and anything that's a threat to some of the modern day systems that keep people really boxed in and not thinking for themselves and not expanding outside of the, you know, the status quo is typically, I mean, why was Gerson therapy, juice, you know, organic juices and coffee enemas illegal in this country as a cancer treatment, although we can, but radiation and, you know, chemotherapy are totally cool. I mean, it doesn't take a whole lot these days, and people are waking up to the big farm con, the vested interests of pretty much everybody in politics. So I don't want to get on one of those, but bottom line is, you know, so ayahuasca ceremonies that I'm involved in are done legally, and in Mexico and in Peru and places like that where we are, you know, within our rights and people are protected. I just want to say that for the record.
Right. No, that's very good to add.
But a big part of what I do is cacao, which I call the gateway ceremony, because we don't have any context for ceremony in the West. We think of ceremony and we think of wedding ceremony, and that's pretty much it. So cacao is a big part of my mission to bring ceremony, bring the context of ceremony and ritual to to the West, where we just don't have access to that. And what that makes available is the opportunity to commune with some of these beautiful, precious plant spirits. And
I like how you put that,
call them
plant
in.
spirits.
Well, it's truly what it is, you know, in my eyes, you know. And so I hold cacao ceremony at my home every week in Tustin, or at my partner Jupiter's house. He's another medicine man that I work with and have an incredible alignment with. We're both Gemmies, so it's like a Gemini male female thing going on there. So but cacao is just a beautiful, sober, heart opening experience.
Is that why they used, I just realized this, duh. Is that why they use chocolate for Valentine's Day?
Absolutely.
Because it opens your heart.
It totally does. It opens the heart chakra. It's sort of,
we didn't even know that.
It actually increases the blood flow, you know, to the brain and to the heart by 10 to 20%, which, so there's a physical response. And it just really kind of amplifies whatever is going on. And so I use it a lot in my healing sessions, just to kind of open up and you know, and so a lot, I was telling you earlier, a lot of women bring their boyfriends, husbands, significant others, and they're like, cool, I'll come to your little chocolate ceremony. Like, that's great. And they're like moved to tears by what gets opened up, because we take the time to create a sacred circle, to bring an intention like we're going to do.
Okay.
So we just Palo Santo do.
So she was going to do this earlier in my kitchen. I said, no, Chante, we have to do this on the show, because I wanted everybody to be able to see what the process for ceremony is.
Yeah.
So, okay.
So you can just imagine in my, you know, funky little living room, and it's usually a drum circle kind of thing. So people will bring instruments. That's another huge thing.
Awesome.
Every woman needs a drum. Okay.
Or a tambourine.
Or but there's something about drumming that is just primitive. It is a part of our archaic nature.
It's very tribal.
Exactly.
And also it's the most, I think it's one of the simplest instruments.
Absolutely.
And everybody can do it together.
Absolutely.
You don't have to have your own skill set to do that.
Exactly.
So, and you can all do it together, and you can create something together that's in unison.
And it's beautiful. And that's really what ceremony is. Let's create something in unison. And the cacao will be the catalyst for that. So can you imagine 15 people or 20 people and sitting in my living room in a circle? And I mean, these are like lawyers, doctors, people, students. I mean, young people, but everyone's coming to get connected. They're seeking connection.
Right.
And
And you did mention how important that is. And it is true. We have Facebook, we have all these modalities, but in some ways we're doing all that alone.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You know?
As my mother would say, and I want to put a shout out to my mama, my guru.
We have hands in.
Yeah.
Hi.
In Minnesota. She says, you know, we are the medicine. People are the medicine. We are the medicine, but we so rarely feel safe enough to extend that generosity, the love, you know, beyond our safe little circle. So that's really what I'm trying to create.
It's somehow, it goes back to when you were a kid and you were told not to talk to strangers.
Totally. Well, and we play it safe, and let's be honest, in this society, it's all about looking good, you know, being cool, you know, and so I'm making it cool to like hang out and talk about your feelings and do open heart exercises and experience intimacy outside of the way that we would normally collapse it, because it's very healing. And I watch what happens when people come to cacao ceremony, have no idea what's going to happen. And I like to throw. What do
you see? What do you see in these people?
So what I see are people being moved by witnessing people of all different ages and different backgrounds going through the same things that they are. And when we start to tell the truth about what's alive for us, what we're feeling, what we're needing, what we're dealing with, that's such a potent and powerful space for us to find common ground, offer support and reassurance. And so, I mean, for me, it's like, look, I swim in really conscious communities. For me, I can pretty much call anybody I know and be like, hey, I really have a need for connection, or I'm feeling a real loss, or I'm mourning today, or would you, you know, I can find that. But it's not until someone comes and goes, I honestly, this like changed. I haven't felt this good in years. I had no idea I was needing connection this much, or inspires them to go take action in an area of their life,
especially
where they've been
people who are not in a relationship.
Absolutely.
You know,
absolutely.
or they're not, maybe they live far away from their family. I mean, those are the places we feel safe, but why do we have these veils up? I mean,
well, we used to, and especially with women. Okay. So I'm going to speak to that. We used to live as tribe, right? Like the men were out hunting, the women were supporting each other, taking care of each other's children. And
it takes a village.
And we were talking to each other and sharing, and then something happened. Like we started separating and living.
We started buying big houses.
We started inventing things like buffets and fan pages and shopping malls and plastic that we put in our bodies. And we forgot that it's all an illusion and that really this is what's real. So
can I toast?
Do it.
Can I toast?
So what do we do in cacao? We sit there, we pour the cacao.
Wait, you said I have to put it. No, we can't drink it. We have to put it to our heart.
We're going to put it to our heart, and we're going to infuse it with our intention.
Okay, so I will also go within.
So I am just.
Now, can I have the intention that this show benefits somebody out there?
That's exactly what I was going to say. Totally, absolutely.
Yeah. So, and that they perhaps they find you, or they find a new way of looking at things, or they look at food food as medicine. I mean, there's a lot of people out there with eating disorders that are not looking at food as medicine. I mean, there's even that aspect.
Absolutely.
So food is healing. Cacao is heart opening and loving.
Yeah, it absolutely is. It absolutely is. I mean, I can't tell you the amount of people who came to a cacao ceremony and they're like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like they really discover that this is a real beautiful plant spirit that really, when you let it in and you really call it in, can really help you access. And this is what my point is: access your own wisdom, access your own, begin to start to hear the voice of your heart, the voice of your higher self, nudging you a little bit louder and a little bit louder. We can start to pay attention to our own wisdom. So
okay, I'm going to be the devil's advocate just for a second.
Do it.
I want to know if anybody's ever come and said, this is just a fancy hot chocolate.
I haven't actually had that experience yet. I'm sure that there are people who have walls up. It's interesting.
Wow.
I had a
friend. This is very, very, this is my first sip. So, I wanted to juxtaposition saying this is a fancy hot chocolate and then try it.
Well, it is. So first of all, I would say absolutely.
Well, I feel like it's the thickest thing I've ever had, and there's a burn. It's burning my throat, and not in a bad way, but in the way spicy food.
There's a little cayenne pepper in there, so it definitely made me burn.
So it's burning, and the density and I feel like I'm drinking velvet.
Yeah, this is medicine. This is ceremonial cacao. Okay, so but yeah, to answer your question, so would I argue with anybody who wants to relate to it as fancy hot chocolate? Absolutely not. But I might invite them to keep trying it, and maybe just to drop in and see what is the look. If their core belief is, look, there is no such thing as spirits. Look, this is chocolate and pepper. Fair enough. I'm not going to argue with you. If you just enjoy a hot cup of chocolate, that's great. But what I find again and again and again is people can't argue with the fact that they feel more self-connected. And I have it because I also work as a compassionate communication facilitator, that when people are self-connected and they're connected with what they're feeling and what they're needing, and they're able to express it, they're clear. There's more peace. There's more Shanti. There's more freedom from the unconscious that they're battling with.
Well, I think what you're saying, and I think what I see happening is, if the unconscious is not brought to light, then you're run by it.
Absolutely.
And people don't realize how they're repeating patterns, whether it's patterns from the past. I've talked about this before on the show, but yeah, I mean, if you can get really free of your patterns, so that you can look at each day with a new fresh start as a blank slate, like a baby does.
Yeah, absolutely. And create yourself from nothing, brand new.
And then you can rewrite your story.
And I'm all about that.
I think that's one of the biggest things. I think the biggest secrets in life is.
I totally agree.
Because we really have the ability to rewrite our story, and it might be hard, it might be treacherous, but it's a good start to at least try.
It's the beautiful journey. I have a friend who was formerly called the F Perfect Guru. She's amazing. She says, the maiden gets to just stay in the light. La 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 la. And trust me, I've been really great at that. You know, light, love, namaste. Oh my God. Like,
it's all good.
Look at my Facebook. It's just all
good.
you know, moonbeams and rainbows, and it's really easy to get caught up in that, you know, especially because we're constantly reinforced for that. But the woman has to do the descent, has to do the shadow work, has to take responsibility and claim and make peace with all the parts of her that we went from, that we were terrified of. And it's the only way through is to walk through it. And so with the support of a community, and by the way, my tribe is your tribe. You're all welcome to come to cacao at my house. And, you know, it's a big joke, but we're like, drink the Kool-Aid, you drink the cacao, like, you know, try it on. You can always leave. You can call it BS. I'm not attached.
And you can still
all.
drive.
Totally.
You
Exactly.
can still drive after.
Well, and you know, if the worst thing that you got was some awesome connections with a bunch of other like-minded or non-like-minded people, but in a safe place to express yourself and be self-expressed and hold space for others, I'm proud of facilitating that, you know. So if someone isn't into the cacao, the spirit of all that, great. If they come and got a really positive interaction, I say that's medicine too.
You know, when I was little, before I knew anything about spirituality, because my parents were, you know, my dad was an engineer, my mom was a dental hygienist. I knew nothing about spirituality, and I certainly didn't know any medicine women or anybody who was really psychic either. I remember I found this book at the library and I checked it out, and it was all about auras. And the book was so interesting because it showed leaves and it showed the auric field around all the plants, around branches, around trees. And I was fascinated by that. And I know science has proven that everything has vibration and everything emits an energetic field around it. So, I mean, hey, it makes sense. I mean, how can somebody say,
but I mean, they do. I mean, and so whether you take the materialist view, or you're open to other ways of looking at life. I think the proof is in the pudding. And at the end of the day, understanding is the booby prize. You know, we get to experience the chocolate. We get to taste. We get to feel the warmth of a hug. We get to.
I do feel. I don't know if it's my imagination, but I took one sip and I do feel a little buzzy.
It's like caffeine. It's a clean caffeine. It's a clean buzzing caffeine.
I mean, I definitely feel a little bit like.
Yeah, cacao is great medicine. It really is.
So how long are these ceremonial?
They're a couple hours long. I mean, what we do is we open it up with a song. You know, everyone sits together. Everyone kind of gets connected. What I'm really great at is creating a very tight container, a very tight circle of security, so people feel really comfortable dropping in. I mean, our ceremonies are confidential, so people might end up sharing something that comes up for them, and it's a safe place for that, you know. But you know, it's not like a big sob fest or anything. You know, we laugh together, we share together. We might have a theme. Sometimes I might share some tools of compassionate communication, or do some open heart exercises. You know, some eye gazing. You know, it can be a little confronting for some people.
What's eye gazing? What is eye gazing?
Is a really powerful way of connecting without words. So sometimes we partner up. I have everyone partner up and put their hand over their partner's heart, and they put their hand over your heart, and in silence you just get connected and find yourself over there. And most of us haven't been given permission or had opportunities to experience an intimate exercise like that with
I mean,
someone.
There's some people,
and honestly, that in itself is one of the most transformative exercises that I can lead.
I bet you there's some people that might not ever do that. Might not ever.
There are
get
people
that
who've been married for 50 years that aren't doing that. You know, I know a lot of married couples that don't have true, you know, intimate eye contact the way that I'm blessed to be able to facilitate in some of the ceremonies. A lot of people are blown away by that. And after you've done that with 20 people in the room, you can't imagine the experience of connection, heart connection with everybody, with all these strangers, you know, that you just met. So it's beautiful. It's giving my life so much purpose, and I'm getting a lot of opportunities to go hold these ceremonies in different places, and it's just beautiful to watch how people respond.
What is the percentage of the ceremonies that you do that are cacao ceremonies or medicinal ceremonies, as opposed to ayahuasca ceremonies?
I would say Probably 60% to 40%.
So 40% ayahuasca?
Yeah.
Okay. Because that's a big step up from this.
Yeah, it is. But I'll tell you what, a lot of people that never would have been open to ayahuasca after coming to cacao and maybe hearing a little bit more about it and understanding that it's not a bunch of people getting naked and running around weird and crazy, like it demystifies a little bit. They start to hear and learn more. And once there's an opening, once we're secure enough to step out of our safety zone and just try on a possibility. You don't need to buy it, but just like try on the cacao, like sip it, see how it feels, and you start talking to people that are doctors, professionals, people who have one foot in the, in the matrix, right? I'll say like professional world, and one foot, in more, or open to these more integrative methods. And they start realizing that, there's a lot of hype and that maybe they don't know everything about it, or maybe there is something calling them. And that's been a beautiful thing, is to find that that this medicine bridges people to some more extreme medicines. I want to talk about another medicine for a moment, if I can.
Yeah,
because it's extremely powerful, and it's legal, and it's also one that's been incredibly healing for me very recently. So a lot of women right now are in America are dealing, well, first of all, we have a lot of women who are struggling to conceive, myself included, for many years. A lot of thyroid issues, a lot of hormonal issues, and there's a lot of theories about this. Is it the plastic bottles of water that we've been drinking is it the chemicals in our environment, but this is a huge thing. This is real. And for myself, when I lost a pregnancy about 5 years ago, I really just seized up and stopped getting my period. Well, 1 week after my first ayahuasca ceremony, I got my period for the first time in like 3 years. That was pretty big. And I'd seen doctors, but I just wasn't interested in doing hormones. I felt like I wanted my body to find itself naturally. And so ayahuasca really helped me bring back my periods, but still not regular. So there's a very powerful medicine that's not very well known in this country, and it's called Kambo, or Sapo, Kambo, or Sapo. What it is, it's the Amazonian tree frog. It was used by the Matsis tribe in a way. And when I explain it to you, it's going to sound a little intense, but just go with me.
Go with her.
How it's administered is they take a stick of incense, and you can't see it on my arm, but I have some scars here, barely noticeable. They take an incense stick and burn the top layer of skin, just the sebaceous layer. And then they apply this reconstituted sweat from the back of this frog. Now, it's fascinating because this frog actually has no enemies, and they're active peptides in its sweat. Some of them are so powerful, they're 1,000 times stronger than morphine. And how it's administered is they put it on your skin, and within about 10 minutes, it's a very intense response. Your heart rate starts beating fast. You start getting really hot, and you drink 2 liters of water before it's administered, and you start purging violently. Okay.
Wow.
It's an intense experience. Most people say they feel like they're going to die. And at the end of that 40-minute period, they can't wait to do it again, because the immediate huge shift in their field and in their consciousness is unlike anything I've ever experienced. And I've experienced quite a few different types of medicine. I can tell you that after one treatment, my period is back on every 28 days to the dot. It's absolutely reset my hormones.
Is it linked to that specifically, or is it linked to many other things?
To so many things. I mean, you start to do the research, and they're having to protect now this medicine from pharmaceutical companies that want to come in and take it over and manufacture it, make it into a pill, take it from its, or its organic, natural state and make it into something else. I'm not even trying to take a stance on that. What I can tell you is that it's helping people who are dealing with incredibly painful end of life pain. They've been able to get off of painkillers. It's resetting hormones, helping people heal from cancer, curing herpes and other viral things.
Shingles.
I mean, it's like you start to look into it, and I work with one incredible facilitator who has done several treatments on myself. And so I urge anybody who's dealing with any kind of a serious situation to look into combo or sapo, and again, contact me.
So they'd have to get it through a facilitator.
Well, I work with somebody. It's legal. There are a number of facilitators that are doing this. It's just not very well known, and I just want to speak about it because after years of trying to figure out what the hell was going to bring my body back to regular, I can't tell you how incredible it is to be back in balance with my hormones. Right.
It must feel like a miracle, like
Absolutely.
a real blessing.
I mean, and the stories of healing that I hear about this are just phenomenal.
I am curious because I've heard with ayahuasca, people also throw up a lot in the beginning. And why is it? Why do you think with combo and why do you think that happens? Is there any reason?
If you go back and look at the herbs and the way that they were used, there are purgatives that were used as part of healing, you know, and so it's not like and it is weird. I mean, like that's probably one of the biggest constraints that people come with me is like, am I going to be like projectile vomiting?
Maybe it's just so powerful.
But the truth is, so first of all, I want to dispel a little myth. So I actually didn't purge my first ceremony. A lot of people don't purge, or they purge the other way. And ultimately the medicine just knows how to work with each person. So there's no standard way that it's going to go. Every tear is a purge. Every moan is a purge, you know? And so I think there's a lot of hype about it, but everyone has a purge bucket and it's really not that big of a deal. Let me tell you, I never thought the sound of a room full of people crying, laughing, purging would be the most beautiful sound, but it's the sound of humanity healing. And
I love that. That's beautiful.
And it really isn't anything like you think it is. Like it's really not a big deal.
Well, it sounds like something's happening.
And I'll tell you what's fascinating. What's fascinating is the same way that you're listening to these beautiful sacred songs and you don't understand, you know, cognitively but you sense and know somehow what it's addressing. When you're purging, my first ceremony, when I finally, the second night, I did 2 in a row. The second night, I knew exactly what I was purging. I was purging the self-hatred I'd been stuffing down. I was purging the fear about stepping into my life and breaking through the chains of approval seeking and good girlness that I'd been, you know, imprisoned myself in most of my adult life. And so there's a really personal connection with what it is that you are getting rid of. When you're getting rid of it, you want it out of you. Like I said, it's these pockets of somatic fear and trauma that are somehow
they do get trapped in the body.
There, right?
They do. Emotions get trapped in the body.
Same as with Reiki. You know, sometimes when you're doing Reiki with people, they get nauseous or you know. And I also have this incredible sound chair that is incredible that I use as part of healing that has vibration and sound healing is another great medicine. So
do you remember the first time, or can you talk about the first time walk us through what that was like the first time you did ayahuasca? And I have to ask you, and I don't want to put you on the spot, especially twice, but have you smoked pot, and how would you compare?
Nothing like that.
Yeah, I'm curious.
So marijuana is a tricky mistress. She's an interesting plant spirit. I would say, you know, as far as like, there's a lot of span that you have with marijuana. You know, it can bring you into your body, enhance the senses, promote creativity. But I needed to learn that there's a difference between sativa, which is more of an upper kind of a stimulating, creative, type of marijuana versus indica, which is more your sleepy, like let's take it down. So I've used marijuana for the last few years legally, you know, for insomnia, and it's been amazing because I was on Ambien and it totally screwed me up.
Oh, Ambien's not very good.
I've been on ADD pills. I've been on Ambien, so I've done the pharmaceutical thing, and I never felt like I was really me. And that was a problem for me
because you were like sleepwalking in your car.
I was like, you know, going to Jack in the Box and then like not realizing I wasn't doing.
I know that's crazy. There was an article about
like,
Ambien.
You listen to like the disclaimers on some of these medications and like may promote unconscious gambling. You might be like working as a prostitute the whole night and not remembering it. You might like what the hell? Like at what point do we go like when do the symptoms outweigh the cure? Right. And I guess that's why I'm so passionate about some of these holistic methods. Ayahuasca is amazing for treating PTSD, anxiety, depression. A lot of soldiers who are struggling to reconcile who they've been forced to be in that role. How do you come back and just like, I mean, there's not a lot of support, and there, you know, the fact that we are a nation where annually we have more people overdosing from pharmaceutical drugs than all the cancers combined. Shocking. that we have more soldiers who have committed suicide than died on the battlefield. I mean, there's a problem when when we're just stepping over that, and doctor knows best. And I'm not dismissing or saying people shouldn't do what they need to do to get through.
Shouldn't listen to their doctor,
right.
but you're showing another way.
But people also need to explore their options, you know, and start thinking about why some of these options aren't available. You know?
So walk us through what it was like. Like maybe, I don't know. I know you said that ayahuasca found you.
Yeah.
But walk us through that. Like, were you nervous? Like, what happened the first time?
I was totally.
Where was it? Was it in Peru? How did that occur?
I'm not going to disclose the location that it was at.
Okay.
But I will say that by the time I felt called, I knew it was time. I got a very clear message. And all of a sudden, all the fear and all the, oh my God, am I going to die? And, you know, all the stuff that you're like thinking, right? It took something to step over it. I didn't know anybody. I went by myself. I signed up for 2 nights. But I really just
you signed
called.
up for 2 nights before you did it?
No. I mean, I knew I had never done it. I didn't know anything about it, but I signed up for 2 nights in a row because I just knew I felt called. And I think a lot of people, once they're ready, it got to the point, and maybe you can relate to this, where not moving forward with this calling was more uncomfortable than staying where I was stuck. So
it sounds like
I followed
you felt
the diet.
compelled.
I did. I mean, it's really a part of my path, and so I felt called. And so I remember, and what's funny is a lot of the people that I met are huge people in my world right now. So there were a lot of cosmic connections and things that opened up. But I was naturally nervous. It takes something to step over into any new experience, whether you're going to go do the Landmark Forum or, you know, go travel any third world country,
right?
You know, but I'm not too confronted. I'm not too stopped by fear. Let's put it that way. So by the time
that's good. That means you have an immense amount of courage.
Well, I think what it is I have an immense amount of faith.
Yeah.
And I feel very protected, and I've gotten a lot of I've had many instances where I trust myself. I trust my path, and I'm also not afraid to die. You know? So I think that helps, right?
That does help.
When you have some faith.
When you have enough faith to think that it's all going to be okay.
I'll tell you the most profound things that happened to me in that first ceremony. Number one, I was blown away because no amount of preparation can really prepare you for it. I felt I had a lot of visions of past lives. A lot of the fears that I brought into this one, including one about not being able to have children, made absolute sense because I saw a past life where my village was burning and I couldn't save the children. And it wasn't like it was like, of course, how could I? It made so much sense. And
do you feel like you were afraid that if you brought more children into the world?
It was just in my it was obviously an unconscious aspect that I brought over from a past life. All of a sudden, everything in my life made sense, from my amazing grandmother, who was my first example. My first memories of being in her garden and playing with plants and watching her tenderly care for each of the little plants in her garden. And I saw how every part of my life was aligned and made absolute sense to bring me to where I was. I was very humbled. I dealt with a lot of shame and things that I'd been not wanting to take responsibility for. I remembered so many things that gave me peace and clarity about my purpose and in this walk, in this life.
How many, I don't know if you can even answer this, but do you feel like you were able to remember a lot of past lives, or was it like 2 or 3 that relate to who you are now? Or
I would say there were a few more recent ones that have been more relevant to the path that I definitely have worked I feel like I've had past lives working as a shaman, as a medicine woman. And so it was like, okay, I found this again. And a lot of people believe that if you find certain plant medicines, it's because it's not your first round, you know?
Yeah.
So it was more like, oh yeah, you know, this, and feeling immediately very comfortable navigating in that realm and understanding and immediately being present to some of the suffering in the room and feeling called to just sort of blow and send love to different places and people that were going through their experience.
So while you were having your own, you were still connecting to other people.
I was feeling very well, and that was kind of a challenge for me to stay with my own experience.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, I could just, I think feel, and I'll tell you the other thing that happened that was incredible working with ayahuasca is it opened up my voice. I never sang in my life, and I immediately found my voice and started playing instruments and opening up this huge, place of creativity. So you bring an intention to an ayahuasca ceremony the same way you do to a cacao ceremony, and so I've gotten a lot of clarity on my purpose and asking for more creativity and to open that up and really dialing into how do I best serve humanity? How do I best serve my brothers and sisters? And getting some really beautiful clarity on that. So it was uncomfortable, certain aspects of it, and also so pristinely beautiful. I think part of me, because like many people probably watching, have watched and dissected like every video and documentary and kind of obsessed over what's out there on the internet, and of course you're going to get as many people's perspectives as there are people. But I did that, of course. So I was expecting to like deal with all these demons and like all the shit I've done.
Or
and
you
like
could have seen something scary.
You do sometimes. And then part of that is that, you get to know yourself as somebody that can be with fear and not, and be powerful in the face of that which we don't quite understand and can't understand why it's, being called in. But what I experienced was the most beautiful mercy and grace and love and compassion from the spirit of ayahuasca, who shows herself to many as a grandmother kind of energy. And so I felt very held and very nurtured. And I remember one of my most beautiful and powerful visions was experiencing myself like in a vision, being wrapped in the vine of ayahuasca, and this vine going right through to my belly button, like an umbilical cord, like breathing.
That's what I was thinking when you said your belly.
Into me, and me breathing love out of my mouth, like sucking in the nourishment of love from her, and then exhaling it into the room and into
it is interesting how these plants all have personalities.
Absolutely.
Like you described cannabis as a different type of personality. By the way, we're almost out of time.
Oh my gosh.
Was there anything here that you wanted to discuss? I mean, we don't have to. There's so much more to.
Yeah,
we can continue on with what you were talking about.
Yeah,
which
these
are
just some different medicines that I work with. This is hape. It's a shamanic snuff that's actually blown up your nose. It decalcifies the pineal gland, and different tribes make different ones. This one was made by an all-female tribe. Only the women dealing with it. Some of them are used for good dreams or for nicotine withdrawal, or
really,
but that's another medicine that's legal that we can talk about that I use and as part of meditation and grounding and but if people are curious, come to a cacao ceremony, come meet some cool people.
And what about this?
That's called a curipe. That's what we use to administer this.
I mean, they're beautiful. They're like these wonderful hands. They look like a necklace.
Ayahuasca vine that right there.
Oh wow. Yeah. Interesting. So if I see this on somebody, I immediately know know that they are they're part of that circle,
or that they just have some connection to that plant spirit for sure.
That's so interesting. So, well, do we want to add anything before?
Just want to thank you and acknowledge you for your show. I really appreciate the fact that you're following your passion. I think that's what we all need to be doing. And even as I met you in another professional capacity, I'm so moved and inspired by the fact that you're taking the time to share with other people who are curious and interested in what's beyond, what's outside of the box. It's an important conversation, and you do a great job of sharing it.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Chante. Yeah, I really appreciate that everybody is watching, and I think that information needs to be shared, and we need to know how we can make our lives more than ordinary, but extraordinary.
Let's heal ourselves and heal this beautiful planet.
It does. That would definitely benefit.
One more thing. I'm feeling particularly called and want to just ask for anybody who's connected with the Dakota Access Pipeline project that was recently turned back over with Donald Trump's presidency, to take action and please do what you can to support the incredible collective stand to protect and save our water from. So that's my only political spiel I'll throw in. It's very important.
Yes, we need to protect our planet so that we can continue on. Thank you, Chante Lux.
Absolutely.
Thank you for being with us. Again, this was an episode of Metaphysically Speaking with myself, Mystic Madison. Please send us some love, some hearts, and some thumbs up so that we can continue the program. And here's to cacao.
Aho. That means that's my prayer too.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye.
So good.